people need to understand that there's a lot of this squirreling away resources and money and things and trying to climb that corporate ladder. This is a finite life. It doesn't last that long. It's a trick. You get sucked into this trick, and this trick is what every CEO and every head of every corporation, every chief financial officer, all these people that are just trying to like improve the bottom line, rake in more money, keep this company growing and keep kicking ass. It's a trick. You're sucked up in a trick. There's a natural human tendency to accumulate numbers for whatever reason. Go back to our early days when resources were scarce. And if you get sucked into that trick, one day you're going to wake up, and that's going to usually be too late. Usually it's on your deathbed. Usually it's close to it. You're like, what did I do? This is it? My health is failing. My life's falling apart. And what has my life been? It's been 10, 12, 14 hours a day in these stuffed offices under fluorescent lights, crunching numbers and trying to acquire things. And for what? Like, what impact have I made on humans? What is the negative impact of my ambition on the people that are around me? Like, all this is like, the one thing that psilocybin and particularly just psychedelics in general can provide is a break from patterns, a stopping, a ceasefire of all the momentum of our culture, civilization, finances, taxes, credit card debt, all that shit just stops, and you get a chance to step back and look at the machine, watch it all whirl and spin in front of you, and you get to say, oh, I got sucked into the trick. I'm sucked into a trick. Well, there's nothing wrong with getting some constructive or even destructive criticism. Like, you just you have to have feedback. I mean, it's not always accurate or correct, but feedback is important, and that's one of the good things about having like one of those talk shows where people call in. That's one of the good things. They get to give you some feedback.
I love that.
One of the bad things is they get to give you some feedback.
Fine.
That's one of the bad things.
Yeah, so it's always entertaining.
Yeah.
Like if they shit on me, it was always very entertaining. As a comic, like I love heckles. I love anybody yelling out. I live for it. Those are my favorite moments.
What I like best is one-on-one conversations with people. That's what I like best. Me too. And that's what I like best to listen to as well.
Yeah.
And like when I'd listen to Stern, and then when someone would call in, I was like, why are they letting somebody call in? And some guy would yell out Baba Booey or talking about sniffing Robin's farts or something like that.
Or they would just be boring, and you don't want to be rude, but you have to be. Like, I can't. I'm doing a show here, man. You're babbling.
It's just odd that he would just go to callers in the middle of a conversation, with some lady who's an actress or something. It's just, I mean, but that's the chaos that he sort of cultivated.
Well, I think that's what's the great thing about this show is the people that you get and the interaction, the conversation that you have. And I was trying to do the same thing for at Sirius.
You were doing it. You just were doing it in this walled garden with a bunch of assholes that are running the ship
and doing it for like 20-25 minutes apiece. I'm always amazed that you and a handful of other people can sustain like an 2-hour conversation. I love that.
Anybody can. You can do it too.
I know. I think I can, but I was never allowed to. There was always those rules were always like
cut to commercial. Yeah.
You had hard breaks. I'm doing a podcast and the other day, and I'm like, thanks for tuning in. We're almost out of time. I'm like, you didn't tune in, and we're not almost out of time. I can do whatever the hell I want. Whatever I want.
No such thing.
I could just keep talking. We can just keep talking.
Well, the worst thing is presidential debates. You're
literally
horrible. Picking the person who's going to run the free world. And you have to stop because there's a Palmolive commercial. Is Palmolive even a thing? Or I'm such an old man. Listen, I'm pulling out fucking Palmolive references.
I think they're usually pharmaceutical companies at this point.
Pfizer.
Yeah,
so
but
it's a boner pill.
The irony of them talking about the pharmaceutical companies and then they advertise during the break. But you're absolutely, it's not real. The presidential debates are so not real. And all those networks, my friends produce those things. And it's just like, it's a show. It's like...
when you get Bernie, like when I had Bernie Sanders in here and you get to talk to him like a real human being.
Yes.
You go, oh, you're a human being who cares about people, and you have a different perspective on what these people are saying. Your idea of democratic socialism is not this wacky socialism.
It's not a soundbite.
And it's not this thing where people think you're just going to steal money from hardworking folks and give it to lazy people. That's the worst case, stereotype.
It's none of that.
Well, I had him in here recently when he was talking about life after death, that he thinks the lights just go out. And I'm like, well, maybe, but we
What do
don't
you
know.
think?
We don't know. I don't think. I don't have any experience with what happens when you die. I really have no idea. It would be very interesting if there was some sort of dimensional travel thing that happens to the spirit or the soul or whatever this concept of consciousness is.
How much do you think about your mortality?
Sure.
On a regular?
I try not to. It doesn't do any good.
Right. But when it comes in, what do you do?
Try to be nice to the people I know. Try to be kind to the people that I care about.
That's an interesting answer. When I say, when you think about your own death, what do? I just try to be a good person. I love that.
There's nothing you can do. While I'm here, I want as little bad feelings as possible. It's impossible to have no bad feelings.
Right.
So whatever I can do to mitigate that, I try.
How have you worked on your anger and had that dissipate? Like, what's the best thing?
Exercise.
For
Exercise is the big one. Yeah, because I think a lot of my anger is just caveman genetics. So, and then a fucked up childhood too. So, growing up in a violent household and being around a lot of violence. Like, I also had to deal with. I grew up essentially all throughout high school until I was 22 fighting. Right. So I was always involved
as an outlet
violence.
For your emotions.
Yeah, well, I was also. It developed my human potential. It was martial arts. It was competition, but it's also there's a downside of that I grew up like being praised for explosive violence.
That's wrong.
Yeah, I mean it was in competition. It was agreed upon. I was doing it with other trained killers, but it's still that's a weird thing to get past.
I have an example of, I'm sure you have a billion of them. I didn't mean to cut you off, but when my daughter was like 3 years old, we're visiting family and people I don't really know, my wife's family, and his 5-year-old son goes over. My daughter's just looking up at the TV, this little 3-year-old girl, and he comes over and he just clocks her, knocks her over. And we're all like, oh my God, what? And the dad comes over and just starts beating the shit out of his 5-year-old. And I just start screaming. I'm like, that's why he did it. That's why he did it. You learn what you live.
Oh my God.
And children learn what they live. And so but what you're saying, when you train, when you exercise, are there feelings, are there emotions coming out, or is it energy that you're just expending?
Energy.
You're not thinking about when you're.
I'm not like angry at my childhood or anything when I'm hitting the bag. No, I'm just exercising. And when I'm running or doing yoga or anything I'm doing that's strenuous. I just had this conversation with Ben Westhoff, who was on here before you. And the way I described it is I think that a human body has a certain amount of physical requirements. I think there's your body's a system, and this system is designed through nature, natural selection, and hundreds of thousands of years of being human beings to have issues that come up and to be physically prepared to deal with those issues, whether it's a neighboring tribe invades you or an animal's trying to attack you or you're just trying to hunt and gather food. All those things are built into our system, and it takes tens of thousands of years for that DNA to shift and change and become something different. So we have a certain amount of physical requirements that we're just born with, and it's different with every person. Some people have less, some people have more. I tend to be on the high side, and I'm a different person when I exercise. I'm a different person when I get time to sleep correctly and eat correctly and exercise. I'm different, and I like that person better. That's a nicer person. I like that guy better. So I try to be that guy as much as I can, but I have a million different people living inside my brain all the time, bouncing around, fighting for dominance.
Really?
Yeah, it's like there's a director that try to keep them all in order, which is like the consciousness.
Is that a struggle?
A lot.
Every day?
Everybody has it. There's always things like you're a better person when you're well rested. Life is going well.
For sure.
You had great interactions with your family, great interactions with your friends, and then you run into someone on the street. Versus you just got fired from your job. You walked in and your wife's sucking the plumber off. You have all these things go wrong.
All that happened to me just now. By the way,
all those things can happen.
I lose my job. I go home. There's my wife with the plumber.
Are a different person.
No,
dependent upon what you encounter in your life.
It's simple. I was talking to my stepdaughter, who's so smart and so sweet and really changed my life in a lot of ways. And we were swimming in the pool, talking about life, and it's one of these conversations that it's like, she's like, "What do you think that there's a God?" And so she asked me, and I said, "Well, we don't go to church or anything." And I said, I said, I don't know, but I was like, this is something interesting to think about. I was like, whenever I think about that, I try to think about the end of the universe, like the very end, like the edge. And I can't picture it. I was like, I can't picture it. I can't picture like infinity. You know, I can't grasp that at all. And I was like, the mere fact that we can't grasp infinity would lead someone like maybe Elon to believe that there's a purposely that was left off in some sort of simulation or whatever. But maybe that would be the argument. But I think that the fact that I can't picture it, maybe I'm just an idiot, but it makes it that I think that there's maybe something more. There's definitely something more to it. That possibility is way open. But I do think. What do you think?
I had this conversation with a guy who's actually an expert on it. This guy, Nick Bostrom, and he was trying to explain to me that because of probability, it's more likely or very likely that we're in a simulation because of the probability of someone eventually creating it, and that it's very possible that we're in it right now, and more probable than not.
But then what does that mean?
I don't know.
A simulation has to be a simulation. A simulation of what from what?
Well, here's something I know for sure. Okay, this is what I know for sure. This is by my own experiences, that we are the only people on this planet that have ever gotten to 2019. This is where we are. We know there's a history behind us. We know that this is the peak. We're at 2000. You walked in at a freaky time, my man. We're at we're at 2019 right now. If we know we exist. We know we have culture. We know we have incredible technology. We don't have any idea if we're the only ones. It's likely that there's other life forms out there. It's likely there's other intelligent life out there. But there might not be. It might be that this is a crazy situation that happens incredibly rarely, where you have a planet that's this close to the sun, where these life forms figure out how to fuck with matter in an incredible way. And they start flying and sending things through the air, that videos that instantly get to your phone. This might not ever happen. This might only happen here. It might happen here and in versions of here, which if you believe in infinity, you have to believe there's infinite versions of this. So there's infinite versions of life. So it's almost built in mathematically that infinity is so big, there's so many possibilities that everything that you've ever recorded has also been recorded by you in another place with infinite variations of each individual song, infinite variations of each album, that there's infinite versions, and that infinite versions of each version. And so it's insane. The whole thing's impossible for our little ant brains to wrap around it. That's possible too. It's not unlikely that it's a simulation. I mean, it's possible it's a simulation, but it's also possible that this is as far as anything's ever gotten, because we know this is as far as we've ever got.
Pat and I are starting an intergalactic publishing company.
Yeah, we've signed futures. We have future rights.
Isn't Scientology signed you to some universe contract for like 1 billion years? Isn't that like part of the deal?
I think if you're on the Sea Org, it's like 1 billion.